Good evening. I'd like to call to order the, actually the November 4th City Council meeting. It's November 4th, Monday this month because of the election cycle that we're in. And then let's stand for a moment of silence. And if you would please, during the moment of silence, Graham Cox, an individual who's done a lot of stuff within this city, passed a week ago. And I think he's been a good help to us on our pest management plans and some other things. So just remember Graham Cox's family in your moment of silence, please. And then the pledge led by Vice Mayor Dixon. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Set a roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Nunn.
Red's on.
No.
Okay, Council, are there any agenda modifications? This isn't really an agenda modification, but the representative from Councilmember Posey's office is caught in traffic on 95. So we're going to slide that presentation of the flag from the U.S. Capitol in once he gets here, in between items on the agenda. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Someone? No one say anything? Okay. All right, let's do our brief announcements, Madam Vice Mayor.
Sure. This weekend is the 21st Annual Sebastian Clam Bake in Riverview Park, kicking off Friday, November 8th from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., continuing Saturday, November 9th from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and wrapping up Sunday, November 10th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day with a ceremony at Veterans Memorial in Riverview Park at 11 a.m. Saturday, November 16th, the Sebastian River Art Club show in Riverview Park from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Friday, November 23rd, is the Chamber of Commerce Finally Friday on Cleveland Street from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Any other announcements that a council member would like to make? Okay, then let's move on to public input. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on any item that is not on this evening's agenda? If so, please come forward. Yes, sir, come back. And if you'd give us your name, and if it's a hard one to spell, please spell it for the clerk.
Certainly. It's an easy one. R-I-N-G, Ring.
Okay.
Arnold Ring, my wife, Mimi Kelly. We reside, first of all, Honorable Mayor, council members, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to extend our gratitude, our deep-hearted gratitude, appreciation for the service that we received during and after the event that happened at the hurricane on the 9th of this month, Milton. It was about 5 o'clock p.m., and I observed the waters to be rising in the front of my home, as many did. And behind my home, there's a canal that runs to the corner of Main Street. And I watched the water coming up in that canal. We live at 207 Cedar Street, right off the corner of Main. I was watching that water come up, and sure enough, it breached. And my heart sank as the water started coming over the banks and approaching our home. We had about a foot of water in the backyard. I walked to the front, and the water was coming up from the front. We have a swale in the front of our home going up to the corner of Main. And then I walked to the corner of Main Street, made a right turn, because there's a catch basin located there. I observed the catch basin to be not functioning as well as it could have. It was full of sediment and all sorts of branches and leaves. I rushed back to my home. This is through about almost knee-high water. And I expressed to my wife the concern, and she immediately started looking up phone numbers in the book. This was 5:30 p.m. She got the phone number for Mr. Jones. Thank God Mr. Jones answered the phone like a fireman. He answered on the first ring, just about. And I expressed our problem, our heartfelt problem, and he took it to heart. And it was no more than 15 minutes after that we hung up the phone that we observed a city pickup truck coming down south on our street. He returned, and about 20 minutes after that, I heard machinery off the corner of Main and Cedar. And the water miraculously started receding. Well, the water was 1 inch from coming in the back door of our home. 1 inch. We moved here about a year and a half ago, and this is the most wonderful place that I've ever had the pleasure of residing. We put all our life savings, everything that we were able to gather from the sale of our previous home, into this place. And it's truly the place we want to spend the rest of our lives. The story goes on. The next day, we still had water in the front driveway. The water was about 3/4 of the way up our driveway, and my concern was that we have two vehicles, a F-150 and a Prius. The Prius sits close to the ground. We were quite concerned that if we went through that swale, we'd damage our vehicle. We ended up going over to the Public Works Department near the airport, and we were lucky enough to be able to get the phone number for wonderful Mr. Plorid. We called Mr. Plorid, and I expressed our concern about the water in the front, which stretched all the way down the street. He said, "I'll meet you at your house in 20 minutes. We rushed home, because we had about 20 minutes ride from the airport there to get there, and he met us promptly. He assessed the situation and said he'd put some people on it. Well, we left to visit with our daughter in Vero. I received a phone call at about 4:50 in the afternoon. Mr. Plorid told us that the problem was addressed, and we went home and noticed that the water had receded miraculously. This is wonderful service that we received from the city of Sebastian, and I will always be grateful for the members of this council, the Public Works Manager, and all the hardworking people that put this into action to save our home. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say that that's a great story, and the people you referenced do that type of stuff all the time. But they also spend an awful lot of time every day, even when it's not storming, to make sure that we catch up with this stuff. And there were a lot of incidences in the city during that same window of time that water got relatively high, and then within a short window, 10, 12 hours, it was gone. It was flowing through the proper channels. So they spend a lot of effort trying to make sure that they don't get to the point where the problem is as drastic as yours was. So thank you for that. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? All right. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand at this time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I am now going to recess the city council, and I'm going to adjourn the Board of Adjustment meeting. Council, there's two sets of draft minutes on the agenda, August 28th and September 11th. What's your pleasure on those?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. This motion is to approve both sets of minutes. It's been seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay. We're now having a quasi-judicial hearing. I'm going to open the quasi-judicial hearing, and I'm going to invite anyone from the public who would like to speak on this to complete a speaker oath card. They're on the back table if you'd like to address the council on this item. And then let the attorney read the variance request, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an appeal of an administrative determination regarding a denial of a land clearing permit for 33.23 acres for Sebastian Overlook Subdivision / Sebastian Highlands Unit 17, Hawkins Project 1 LLC appellant. The developer wishes to appeal staff's determination pursuant to section 5412-1-2.1D in accordance with that same section. The appeal request was received within the initial 10 days of the denial, and at this point, the staff's record and all of those items would be presented and entered into your evidence for consideration, and city staff is here to explain the process, and I believe the appellant as well.
Okay. Do any council members have ex parte communications they'd like to report on this? No.
No.
Okay, I'm going to report it, although it really wasn't ex parte. I was contacted by Rebecca Miller's assistant to try to set up a phone call, and we didn't manage to do that, but I was contacted, so I'll report it. All right, now let's let the applicant come forward and make a presentation, please.
So just for the record, there was no actual communication,
No,
so you
there wasn't
don't
any
need
actual
to,
communication.
It's not an ex parte communication.
Do you have to swear in? Do we have to swear in people who are going to present factual
If they didn't
information?
fill out did you swear an oath on the paperwork?
I did not as
So
the
then-
applicant.
Yeah, let's swear them, and then if you
Okay,
didn't, or have him fill out the oath card. If you want to fill out the oath card afterwards, you can.
Okay.
Okay, because that'll do the
Yeah,
same
I
thing.
can
if
fill
you
that
want.
out
Oh, okay.
afterwards.
Which
Thank
do you,
Thank you, sir.
you fine with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is John Bills. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak here tonight. I know it's been a long time coming to kind of get to this, and it's been a long, drawn-out process for everybody that hopefully we can bring to an end and get the project going forward. That's really the hope at this point, and to try to find some common ground to do that. I do have a presentation I'm going to share here in a moment that's going to walk through some of the details of the project. Wanted to read a quick opening statement, and then I'll run through the slides on it, if that's all right with you here this evening. So, as was mentioned, I'm president of DDC Management. We are a real estate management company, and we are owners or managers of the Hawkins Project 1 project here in Sebastian Highlands, Unit 17. We're also constituents here at this point, as the sizable piece of the property there in the city of Sebastian, and pay the taxes same as all the other residents and property owners do. I think it's easy to consider corporate entities like us when we're developers as undefined developers coming into and quickly leaving your community without being stakeholders. The reality of this project is that we purchased the property 3.5 years ago and are not under any sort of conditional contract. We're not trying to get something approved and just only do it if it gets approved at this point. We own the property, and we plan to move forward and try to build something that's great for the city here. We are your constituents paying our fair share of taxes while employing residents to assist in our land purchase, maintenance, and future for our land. This has not been an easy process, as many of you know, and it's taken a rather long time and expensive road to get here. We purchased a platted development 3.5 years ago and have worked through many challenges in the city staff, and therefore with the reviews and the plans, and even in council members. As there's 3.5 years, a lot of things happen, people move on, and there's turnover. All of those things are normal, but we've been working hard trying to throughout that time. We now have an approved development order and engineering plans to create a beautiful new community on the last developable unit of Sebastian Highlands. Many of your residents purchased homes in previous phases or built homes, and we are happy to join this community. Thankfully, this community was anticipated and planned out and approved by your city well before our purchase and well before the current decision makers were even part of the decision-making process back then. The city anticipated its arrival and accounted for its impacts when they completed this plat. In good faith, we've become part of that history. While all this is obvious and not up for discussion, we must acknowledge that it's also not 1972 anymore when this was approved. Thankfully, the technology and processes of developing a site are extraordinarily more ecological and effective than in the days of the early development in Sebastian's or any other Florida city. Since Sebastian was incorporated, the surveying tools and the engineering knowledge of water management, flooding, and drainage have been completely revolutionized. The federal government, the state, water district, and your municipality have put into place measures to manage the development of communities to assure healthy and successful building for decades to come. These new requirements and processes dictate that we plan an entire site's elevation and grading to perform together. The lots are symbiotic and require each other and their elevations grading to work together to manage the drainage and flow of on-site water along with pollutants and proper flood zone protections. Developing and clearing one lot at a time makes sense only when you have an individual homeowner buying a scattered lot. These scattered lots are typically at the highest risk of future drainage issues. When you have a builder such as Ryan Homes, who we are working with in order to sell the finished lots to, I'm not affiliated with them, but we are working with them, and they plan to purchase the lots to build homes on. When they're the fourth largest home builder in the country, building all the homes in a community to approach with a scattered lot mentality if that's the final decision here tonight, is too detrimental for all involved. Your obligation before us today is to make good decisions for your community. Doing anything less than allowing mass grading and clearing of the site to ensure drainage flows are correct, ponds are built, and the individual lots are properly interconnected with confluent drainage is doing a disservice to your community and those future homeowners that will be buying the lots within the community. We move very quickly, we build fast, and we build efficiently. We ensure that the entire site works this way, and creating obsolete barriers to our modern development process is not the way this city should go in order to protect the future residents. You have approved new subdivisions that are not hampered by this single lot clearing requirement in the last 3 years, and we hope that you'll at least consider, after hearing the information tonight, consider allowing us to do the same. As mentioned, DDC Management is the company that I work for and president of. We've been I've been doing it for 12 plus years. The company's actually been doing it for close to 30 years. We develop in multiple states, but have developed, I don't know at this point, probably 8,000 to 9,000 lots in multiple states, and have experience. Actually, I got my start during the downturn in a lot of situations like this. After other subdivisions slowed down or failed, we came in and tried to revitalize them after the kind of 08, 09 crash in the residential market. So I spent a good bit of time working in similar situations to what we have here tonight. Wanted to start out, the first slide I have here is just the original plan for this. So this was the original platted community. You can see there's 109 lots on it. Pretty straightforward, very similar to what the rest of Sebastian's Highlands looks like. This next slide is the new revised plan that we've been working on now for several years with both the water district as well as the city to come up with a better plan. Even though it was platted lots, you know, some of the issues that we did work to resolve on is there weren't stormwater ponds built in most of Sebastian Highlands that had direct drainage that ran off into the canals, and that new practices are to have on-site detention in order, it helps with just the release of the water. The water still has to eventually leave the site, but this helps control it, to help control flooding. It also helps with pollutants in the water, contaminants that just come from watering the grass or fertilizing from the on-street parking. It helps filter it out before it leaves the site. So we came to, you know, a good compromise over the time period in order to come up with, we lost 10 of the lots, put a stormwater, a wet basin that's gonna be here in the center. You know, the other benefits to that is there'll be green area around the pond. and it's an aesthetic feature for the residents that are gonna live in this community. So we're happy with that. We do think it's gonna create a better overall feel to the community once it's done. Obviously giving up those lots, you know, that's just part of it, and doing the right thing with the stormwater. But what we run into now, what this slide is, this is one that we added in. This is basically what we're approved to do right now. With our development agreement and with it, we can come in, we could clear all the right-of-way of the roads, and we could clear where that water infrastructure needs to go. And so the red areas are where the pipes that feed into the pond, that all the water has to basically get from the lots onto the street, through the sewer system into the pond, and then eventually after it goes through that treatment and it sits there, it's released at a controlled rate down into the canal at the bottom, and then ultimately makes its way out to Schulman Canal. One of the things that we worked through though with the city is the original plan, as it was designed originally, sheet flowed all the water, and it made its way down into the canals. And what they wanted to do, and is a great thing, is to contain as much of that water on site as possible so it gets that treatment and gets controlled. So we had to adjust our grading plans in order to get the water, and this is when I was talking about in that opening statement that all the lots have to work together in order to get the water to flow where you want it to go for the engineering design. If you can imagine, when we go in here, all the red areas, not the pond, but the roads and where the pipes are, and the whole site when it's finished, when we get to the finished state, is gonna have anywhere from 1.5 to 5.5 foot of additional dirt on it. And the reason for that, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it with the pointer, like the highest is down here in this lower corner, I think is around 5.4 feet of fill. And basically the back of the lots, we have to build the back of the lots up and get the water to flow towards the new streets we're putting in, instead of flowing away from the streets into the canals or into to the north. And so we have to come in and do that. If we only come in and put the road in and we put that pond in the middle, what we have unintentionally done is build one big pond in the middle of this. All of the lots that'll be sitting in the middle of these roads will be between 1.5 and 2.5 foot below where the finished grade will be. What that's gonna do, and if we just have one homeowner come in and build on one of these lots in the middle, and we cleared those trees, we build a home, we build their home up the 2.5 feet that it has to be, you're gonna have a swampy area, a wet area, a pond sitting next to them on each side. And I've had situations over 12 years where I've dealt with that, and it's never good for us as the developer, it's not good for the builder, it's not good for the homeowner, and typically not good for the city because that's who they're calling to complain to, that there's wet, swampy area, things not draining next to them. The same situation, you know, the biggest concern, or one of the biggest things we worked through out of all of this was getting all the water, or 90% of the water, to drain into that pond. If we don't grade the outside of the perimeter, that water is going to continue to run away from the road until we get every home in here built, because it's going to be sitting below where the road's at. Unfortunately, there is no real good way to do that without coming in and putting all the dirt on grade at one time and getting all the water to go where the city wants it to go and where we want it to go. The end state, and there'll be some slides where I highlight this, the end state's going to be the same, very similar regardless of the path we go. It's just how much pain you want, you know, from the start to the finish of homeowners having wet areas, having continued runoff from the construction site into the canals because we don't have it built up properly all around the perimeter, and it's going to just exacerbate a problem. And what is a little bit of a problem now will become worse as construction happens if we can't get the whole site on grade and draining properly at the very beginning. And that really is, at the end of the day, the site's going to be the same. I'm going to be able to sell homes and lots, but I've been through enough of these to know there's going to be a lot of upset homeowners and a lot of upset neighbors that live to the north when there's wet, swampy areas in what is now fairly dry area that's like back behind their properties. And we really do want to try to avoid that if at all possible. Some of the advantages, I hit on a lot of those during the slide, but just to reiterate them, drainage during construction, that's the big one. There'll be stagnant water on site if we don't get this drained properly and get all the water going to the streets and going to the pond. Pest and disease control, when you do it one at a time, that's the more specific. The first one's more about getting it so that you're not having the stagnant water, not getting it to not drain properly. The pest control is the same thing you have when you start getting pockets, as you have scattered homes built, you have pockets of wet, stagnant ground. You get mosquitoes, you get all those things that I get complaints about if we have any of those in our communities, and I want to try to avoid that for everybody involved. The less residential disturbance, the reality is the dirt, I talked about how much fill we have to bring in. In order to get this site to drain the way that everybody wants it to, the city included, we got to bring in, we're estimating 70,000 cubic yards of dirt. For anybody that doesn't work in that field or understand how much that is, it's going to be probably 5,700 to 6,000 dump trucks of dirt have to come in order to build that up. There's really no way around doing that and to get it to drain properly. The question is, and it is a disturbance, it is anytime you do a construction project, do you want that disturbance for the neighbors and for the people in the community to go on for 3 years where you bring them in 60 at a time? Or try to get it all knocked out while we can work closely with the city and come up with a plan of how to do it in the least disruptive way possible and get it knocked out in a 2-month period of bringing in dirt instead of 3 years or 4 years. And so that's why we try to do it. We try to work, usually it's on the staff level with the city works, with the engineer or whatever, to come up with the best plan and try to get it done as quickly as we can to limit the duration of the disturbance. Traffic, it's the same thing I kind of hit on. It is the same thing. We try to work around with schools and timing when a lot of times when we work with municipalities. And again, if it's spread out over a really long period of time, that becomes hard to manage and hard to do as well. Site work, concurrent development site clearing accelerates the construction, which we hit on. Faster infrastructure installation. The clearing activities reduces the prolonged land disturbance, limits the soil erosion, and better preserves the surrounding ecosystem. That's because we can come in, do it all at once. We then have to follow EPA's guidelines to get new grass established so that you don't have runoff, as opposed to disturbing it a bunch of different times all the way through and then trying to go back through that. So we talk about what it's going to look like in the end, and it's going to be very similar under either way. Part of that is, even if we did it site by site, I know the hope is when you do one lot at a time, you can save trees. The reality is when we have to put 1.5 to 5 foot of fill on a lot, it's going to kill the trees. You can't bury the root system of a tree and ultimately save it in the end. And so the end state's going to be very similar to that. But what we will be doing under either scenario is we will, per your code, will come in and we'll put 7 of the trees that are specified within the city's code in here. So when we're done, that's 693 new trees that will be provided to help with the canopy coverage, consistent or in meeting the adjacent communities and neighborhoods. Existing trees located next to the retaining walls along Schumann Waterway. This was something we had an arborist come out and do an evaluation. And it was just noted that there is a lot of trees currently growing along the Schumann Canal within close proximity, where she was worried about the root damage that could cause to the actual seawall that's part of the lots that are along Schumann Canal. New trees will avoid this with easements. When we go through and we have easements to protect areas, we'll make sure that the trees are put in places where it's not going to cause problems for the homeowner's infrastructure or the city's infrastructure. When it's all said and done. The on-site drainage system, it's going to reduce, it's going to contain, reduce, and limit the time period or increase the time period at which the water exits in order to help reduce the flooding. It'll provide stormwater treatment before discharging it and the overall lower volume into the city's drainage canals. Our completed community will discharge less water than the current undeveloped lot. Right now, it currently all drains in without any treatment into the canal. This build approach will significantly decrease the impact in the city's canals adjacent to the site during, your heavy rain events. Timing-wise, this is a community that we just pulled up. This is one I did up in Orlando. It's a larger community. Obviously, you can tell from the pictures, but so this was like 430 lots that we did up there. And I wanted to show, from a timing perspective, when I talk about we move quickly, so this was in April 1st of 2021, and we had just got done with clearing activities of the majority of the site. You can still see where it was root raked. And then this picture isn't from 1 year later, but because it's 434 homes, I wanted to give a gauge. We had sold our 100th lot in there just a little over a year later. Now that's a little bit faster than what we normally do, but they do sell very quickly in here. So the quicker we can get in and we can get the work done, let the home builder come in, do their thing, build the homes, the quicker everybody's disturbances are reduced, the quicker there's tax revenue coming in, all of those things to benefit the city as well, the quicker we can get it out, and the less disruption to the current neighbors and the future neighbors that are going to be building within the community. And speaking to that, a more realistic timetable, once we get the site built, Ryan Homes, I would anticipate them to build it out in 2 years for a community this size. They average about 50 homes. That community I was talking about up north, they've been averaging about 120 homes a year. 50 is more of the normal pace for how fast they build within a community. So if we did the scattered lot program, that's gonna drag it out a much longer time period. It's just not what they do, and not even sure they could do it. It could have to go a different route, but they're a large home builder. They do this every day. I work with them in a lot of different cities, a lot of different states, and they're able to come in and just move through it quickly to help lessen the overall impact. In conclusion, concurrent development will ensure proper drainage on site, avoiding water stagnation. Development construction will not only be more efficient for DDC, but for the city as well. Community disruption will be reduced dramatically when compared to the individual lot clearing. At this point, we're kind of setting down a path of where it's going, and we can go the path that it's currently approved. But at this point, I really do want to do what I think is best for both the city and for the community that is out there now, knowing that the end state is going to be the same. I want to try to reduce that in any way I can, any kind of pain points, any kind of problems. I don't want, after we've spent 3 years working through a drainage plan and figuring out how to do it, then abandon it at the 11th hour and piecemeal it, and then it not work the way anybody wants it to work for a long time. I want to try to avoid all of those things. So thank you for the opportunity to come and speak tonight to you. I think there's a couple sections. I'll be happy when time's appropriate to answer any questions you have of me. And then I'm joined by Rebecca, who has spoke, I know, here before as well. But as the owner, I wanted to come and talk to you as well tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
If there's questions at an appropriate time, we'll call you back up and we can do with that. Okay, the staff, would you like to make a presentation, please?
Thank you, Council. So we're here to consider an appeal of an appeal request regarding a denial by staff for a land clearing permit for Sebastian Overlook subdivision, which is a portion of Sebastian Highland 17. The copy of the denial is found on page 24, and I wanted to let you know that is it wasn't a direct letter of denial, but more of a form letter out of the building permit system that does have other items on there. There are 9 items on there. We just wanted to make it part of the record. As we understand, the appeal request is just for that item number 1, which has to do with the individual land clearing, not the other 8 items that we have put on there. They have not mentioned anything in their letter that they are appealing our denial based on those items, just that number 1. So for its denial, when the permit came in, staff had several considerations that we included for our decision. The first being is the uniqueness of this property in that it's already been platted. Usually our subdivisions come in on large pieces of property that are not platted. They're maybe 2 or 3 large, 100-acre parcels. River Oaks is 180. There's 5 parcels there, but they're not platted. These are 109 lots that have already been platted. They have 109 tax parcel IDs, and there's 109 addresses already established for that area. So it made it ideal for when the developer saw this. There's been about 4 owners, since GDC platted this in 1972, they have bought these as large tracts. We're grateful that we don't have 109 individual owners in there because that would really make a mess of everything. But it's the same one owner that we're working with. So when the developer, I think, bought these, and you look at this, you're like, this is great. All we have to do is put in the roads, and they're going to be public roads, so we don't even have to maintain the roads, and utilities, and we're good to go. Assuming that they were grandfathered in from the GDC St. John's drainage permits, which the canals were already put in. When staff reviewed that, and this is the main reason why the stormwater pond went in, because we have plans. The first 2 years of reviewing this, there was no stormwater in that subdivision. It was just going to drain as it was into the canals. But when we reviewed the old St. John's permits, we determined and found information that it only allowed 30% of those, each of the individual lots could be developed. So out of 10,000 square feet, you could put a house and all your pavement, swimming pool, sheds, only 30% of that lot coverage was included in that original GDC drainage permit. The current zoning district allows 55%. So to be able for St. John's to allow the 55% and to be able to get what all the RS10 zoning district allows, the 55%, this stormwater pond became a part of that design to cover the extra impervious area for that 30% to 55%. And even back in 1995, there was a developer that came in with the 55%. St. John's had concerns without any stormwater that those basins in that area were already starting to get full. So the pond was added. At that time, because now there's a pond, there's some drainage pipes, there's drainage infrastructure, staff had proposed that they replat this portion. It would make it easier on establishing the dedications for the stormwater easements, for the pond, who was going to maintain everything. Let's just replat it. We'll get it on a dedication on a final plat to replat. The question from the developer came is, if we replat, do we have to meet current subdivision codes? And the city attorney opined that yes, you would. Now, what that meant for if you replatted, because what this plat did not have to provide, because they're being grandfathered in, they did not have to come up with a formal landscape plan for the subdivision. They did not have to supply the required recreational acreage, which is 4 acres for every 1,000 persons. This subdivision would require 1 acre of recreation. And there's a new comp plan policy that requires 25% of native tree habitat be retained. So if they were to replat, it was determined that they would have to add that. They came back and said, we want to remain being grandfathered in with what we need to do for the old GDC permit. And at that point, we said, okay, we included in your packet, we have an email that stated, if you're going to keep all of the grandfathered in non-compliances, we're looking at this as 109 individual lots, and we're going to not allow clear cutting of the whole 33 acres. We're going to kind of need to do this as each individual lot. So we kind of feel that you can't call yourself a new subdivision, but you still want to be this old subdivision, and we really can't pick and choose. I do want to clarify, though, so if this was a new subdivision, they would have the right to clear all 33 acres with their land clearing permit. Even if you uphold this decision and they come in with individual land clearing permits, they can still clear cut each individual lot and take each tree down. They'll have to come in with individual permits. We'll have a survey for each of those 10,000 square foot lots with better details, exactly what trees are there. If they clear cut, however, and we included in your packet the residential land clearing application, they do have to replace any of the specimen trees with 12-foot trees versus the 8-foot trees that if it's just a protected tree or smaller trees that they have to plant, or if there's no trees on there. So this gives us a little bit that we can possibly get some nicer trees in there. But what I wanted to clarify, because I think there's this misconception that they can only build 1 lot at a time. On page 41, there is some policy from the building department for new subdivisions, but let's just, as you're developing this, that as soon as your road gets a level of stabilization and you have the utilities along the road and fire hydrants are in place, you can submit for building permits and your land clearing permits. And so if they were to do a portion of Ithaca and get that all in, they could come in all at the same time and submit 15 home permits and 15 land clearing permits. So we're not saying that this has to be, you have to finish one home and then you can do the next and you finish the next one. They can do these in blocks of homes. Because this is platted, we're going to be looking for those individual land clearing permits. And also in the developer's letter, and as Mr. Bill stated, that there's 3 feet of fill that's going to be required on this entire site. That I did pull the approved drainage plan from the approved construction drawings. And it appears that most of the existing elevations are approximately 20.4 to 21.5 feet. And the elevations along the road are going to be 21.8. So at least along the roads. Now the pads of where the houses are, and remember this is water and sewer, so this is not going to have all of that fill brought in for the house pad for septic and drain fields. But because some of the lots are in flood zone elevations, there's some fill that's required. But a lot of that fill doesn't come in anyways until your plumbing pipes are submitted, installed for the new home when that permit comes in. I could not find on the corner lots along the drainage canals where 5 feet of fill was going to be brought in. The existing elevation on this drainage plan says it's 21.7, and then the final grade of those lots are 22.3, so that's half a foot. And I did want to point out that the 10 lots, which is 2.5 acres where that lake is going, the current elevation is 22.2. It's going down to an elevation of 4.83, and I'm fairly certain that a lot of that fill coming out for that lake will be able to be dried and used on site. So I'm not sure if that many trucks would be coming through Sebastian streets when they're going to be able to use that fill that they're demucking and stuff from the lake. As such, this was how staff determined. We just feel because it is already a platted area, we hate to see 33 acres cleared. Again, if it was a new subdivision, they could, but it's not. And I think the benefit of possibly doing the individual lots is if it does take 2 years, or even if it takes longer because of any type of change in economy, we're not having 33 acres of unsoldered or stabilized sand blowing into our canal or going into those adjacent neighboring subdivisions, because this is another uniqueness in that this is kind of an enclave. It's surrounded by existing house subdivisions already. And with that, staff wishes that you would uphold staff's decision to deny the commercial land clearing permit.
Okay, council, appropriate now for you to ask questions of either the applicant or the staff.
I have a question for staff. So is this considered to be a planned development?
No, it's straight zoning, RS10. It's not a plan unit development.
Okay. Because I did notice the one in the wonderful presentation he gave, Lakewood Park, which showed a clear cut, was a planned development. It was not like this one, which is not a planned development. Planned development would have required replatting?
It would have needed a change to the zoning, and then yes, they would have had to replat.
Okay. That's my question for now.
Anyone else?
No. Thank you, Dory, for the great explanation.
Let me kind of repeat, if I could, just because I want to make sure I'm clear. The reason, if I understand it right, the difference between pretending like it's a new subdivision and using the existing plat is if we go to the new subdivision route, then we have to meet the current code. And the current code requires a landscape plan. It requires dedication to park services, some land for parks and so forth, and about 25% native trees. We also had issues with St. John's because they're 30% impervious surface. They wanted to go to 50, and that's the reason the pond's being put in there, is to be able to go from 30 to 50.
The RS10 zoning district allows the 55,
yeah, okay.
Yes.
So the components that are different between what they'll have to do with the platted plots and with a new subdivision is primarily a landscape plan, dedication of land to parks, and then a requirement for 25% native trees. Is that kind of correct?
Yes, if they wanted to replat to help with the dedications. But they did it already. We have an approved developers agreement, and we, working with their attorney and Ms. Cockcroft, we've gotten the dedications that we're comfortable with. There's still probably some easement documents that may need to be recorded.
Okay.
But we've gotten between that developers agreement and the HOA, the same things that you would have on a plat in terms of that is in that developers agreement.
Okay. So from their perspective, the only additional things that they would have to do to convert this to a new subdivision, basically, would be to produce landscape plans, dedicate the park, and then meet the requirements for native plants and so forth.
Yes.
And of course, without there being and quite frankly, I don't want to try to depend pretend that I know whether it's a waiver or a conditional, whatever that we would have to do, but we can't, those things are part of the code that we can't change, we can't waiver those. I mean, we're not gonna waive their requirement for a landscape plan. We're not gonna give them a conditional waiver on any of that stuff. So that's the requirement that they have to do. And that was the reason that they basically chose not to go with the new subdivision route.
As I understand,
And I can
yes.
ask the builder about that too. So, is that, yes, if you'd like to come up. I'm trying to understand why we didn't, if that's the only differences, quite frankly, landscape plans aren't that hard to put together. I mean,
Yeah,
landscape architects won't charge you an
No,
arm and a
the
leg.
landscape plan
They'll
isn't
take the
that-
leg, but not the arm probably, but.
The landscape plan isn't too big a deal. The biggest thing is with the way it sits today, it's all on individual lots, and they will have landscape plans that have to be submitted with each individual lot
Yes.
that shows the 7 trees that come in. Regardless of the path we go, there will be almost all of this ground, and prior to the pond track, it was all just lots that would have individual landscape plans that came in at every building, and they still will now, and that's where those 7 trees will come in.
Okay.
As
But
far
would
as
that
like a
not have been
landscape plan around the pond, we can do that, but there's just very little actual ground that is HOA space, like your traditional HO space. The biggest reason that we didn't convert to this, we were about 2.5 years into this, and it did come up again that we could revert and go to that, but I was told it would take another 2 years, and I thought we had at that point an approved plan or a plan that was close to it.
It won't take 2 years. It won't take 2 years. I'm just trying to understand, because one of the problems is why are we, if it was a developer's decision not to go the new subdivision route, and it was because of these items, it doesn't seem to me that that's an overly onerous thing to do in order to be able to get what you want, as opposed to stay within the route that we are.
Are you saying can replat it?
Replat it.
I mean, at this point,
I
Dory could speak to what the average time period is here. I do a lot of replats in other municipalities, not here. Replats and PUD plans or plan development plans. The average time for me is 1.5 years, anywhere from 1 year to 2 years. Because it's a multi-step place where you go through with planning and zoning, and you go through, and it usually, I don't know how long Spirit of Sebastian, how long like theirs took to go through. I know that's one of the more recent ones that had come through.
Dory, can you give us any input on what the steps would be?
I'm thinking, so construction drawings are already approved. I don't know, again, if you're referring to that as we went through the process, that you would give them a waiver for the recreation?
No, what I'm saying is that let's make it a subdivision, okay? And go through that, and that's what I heard you say was that they were given an opportunity to not use this current plat and to go through the new subdivision route. And the differences, as I understood them, was basically the landscape plan, the park dedication, and some of the code changes around our comp plan on native planning and so forth.
Yes, and a new plat would then, right now your pond is going to have a legal description of 10 different lot numbers, where a plat would then, this would become a tract, and the tract would be dedicated to the HOA. So a lot of that's why I was saying I don't think it would take 2 years. We will have to do some recreation calculations, and they would have to let us know where an acre of recreation would be, that they would, that could be public. So there's different things. I just think a lot of it is already in place, so I don't think it would take 2 years. We've already got the surveys, we already have the plan, you've actually got the construction drawings approved. It would be more of a formality to go through the preliminary plat, get it approved, and then the final plat.
Okay.
I just think we're getting off track here. We need to go back to this specific request and not how we got here, but where we're at.
All right.
Thank you. Just because it's a quasi judicial and thank
Okay,
you.
Anyone else have any questions for either of these people? Nope, thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to open this up now to the floor for anyone who wants to speak in favor of this request. Seeing none. Anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this request, come forward, please. Yes, sir, come on.
Make sure they have their speaker paper.
Yeah, did you get one of those speaker cards? Okay, after you speak, would you do me a favor? On the back table, there are some cards. Would you fill out one of those and leave it on the table for us, please? Yeah. No, you can, no, speak now and then go back and do that after you speak. That's fine. We need this because of the quasi-judicial nature of this hearing, and we need to have.
This is my first meeting.
I know. That's
I'm
fine.
totally green.
That's fine. Okay.
My name is William Mosley. I live on 118 Day Drive, which is right across the street from there. And all that planning sounds good, but every house in Unit 17 and most of the others are built one at a time. When people come in and buy a lot, they don't pick the lot that they're told to. They pick what they would like, where they would like. So clear cutting has no advantage there. And also you got to think of the wildlife. We have bobcat, we have all kinds. Clearing one at a time. The animals have a chance to find other, because there's woods beyond those to the east of this development. There's plenty of county land that is uninhabitable in that. And if they clear all at once, everything is going to be pushed into our area, which is right adjacent to it. Second of all, Day Drive is not a standard road. It's narrow. It's supposed to be, I believe, 22 feet wide, and it's only 19. And having all these trucks coming in all at once, if you have 4 or 5 truckloads at a time for a lot, so be it. But if you're going to have truck after truck after truck, there's going to be dirt, there's going to be dust, and anything coming from the north is going right in my yard and my neighbor's yards also. And as they say, not much more than that. As they say, oh, it's not the first rodeo over there either. This is apparently the fourth developer that has tried to build it. And the last one, which is Cornerstone, left a big pile of junk in the middle of the lot. When he just went left, he couldn't do it. And as they say, hey, Sebastian has great laws. Every house that is built, we built 34 years ago, and we're tickled pink to be here, and we're not complaining that they're developing across us. That's fine, because you people keep the standards up, and every area is decent, But they're, as I say, when they want to come in, Christmas is in December, not November, and the laws were made to, and have served this city very well. And they should be kept, at that. So everybody is on the same playing field.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. No, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't applaud. It's kind of disruptive to the overall flow. If you don't do that, please. Anyone else like to speak in opposition to this request? Next person.
Good evening, Council. Robert Vota, 582 Breakwater Terrace here in Sebastian. I'm also the manager of Spirit of Sebastian project, and I know the gentleman referred to the Spirit of Sebastian and the amount of time that it took to develop. And just want to remind you guys that we also had to annex in, and there were quite a few other things that were going on during that time to affect our development time and getting permits. But the other thing that I would like to remind you is I was also involved with the Collier Club project and its final phasing. And I'd like to remind, because not all of you were here during that time, that project was a PUD, but we also developed that one lot at a time. We did not clear cut that project. Spirit of Sebastian, totally different project. Spirit of Sebastian is land recovery. That was a sand mine. It had already been cleared, and it just has grasses growing on it. So we weren't clear cutting for a reason. I mean, it just makes sense because we went through the PUD process. This is single lots, individual lots. The individual clearing worked at Collier Club with the roads being in, the drainage. We didn't have some of those problems that they were talking about, but it can be done. individual lots. And I think that that's what code says it needs to be. And that's what I would expect the county to, or the city to abide by. I just think that that's the best way to do it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak in opposition? All right. Seeing none. Okay, the applicant can provide any responses they'd like to provide, please.
To clarify just a couple points that I know came up during the 70,000 yards I referenced, that's in addition to what's coming out of the pond. We run, it's a program called Ag Tech that it takes the approved new grades, the existing grades, and it does the dirt calculations, tells you. And the points of reference I was coming is referencing proposed versus actual. We get a map with, I don't know, 2,000 points across it that tell me what the cut and fill is in every location on it. With that, you know, so the 70,000 is after we use the dirt that is in that pond currently. The other thing, and it is, I agree, the road itself may not be coming up, but we have to build, and I think you referenced that it's close to existing grade or within a little bit, the road is. But the difference is now, if roughly, it's not exact, but if you had a flat sheet of paper and you put the roads in one location and you now have to get all the water because I'm not allowed to let it drain to the rear. In a lot of cases, we have a lot of sites where we could do a lot by lot because it's designed for the water to run away from the roads. In the instance here with that, in the design that we worked through with the city, they said I have to drain all the water towards the roads. So if you put the roads right at existing grade, we have to put the dirt in it up to the back in order to get your slope to get the water to the front. So we do have to build up the lots. It's just the mechanics of how the roads would go in. Even if they were completely level with the current ground and you wanted to get the water that way, you would have to build up the lots to get the water to flow that way. And I can't speak to the other specific subdivisions here. I have done some where if the water was draining away from the street, yes, you can leave cleared lots or whatever in that case. But where it's a requirement that I build up the back of the lot to get it to run forward, unfortunately, that won't work. We can move forward with this. I am fearful of what it's going to do to the current residents and the new residents and the complaints that everybody, including me, will get when we do it. Because we can come in and do it. It will just create these low spots, and it's going to create a maintenance nightmare. We're going to be running trucks, to the point, as opposed to bringing in that dirt before the city gets brand new roads in there and paved and built. We're now going to be running 6,000 trucks over brand new roads that just got built, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, to try to do it. It's just the construction activity of what I believe is truly in the best interest of the city and the residents is to try to do it all at once, knowing the end state's going to be the same regardless when we get to the very end. As to the one point where I think Dory stated that it might be a little bit better potential for that if they went in tree by tree and did the calculation that maybe there would be a little bit better. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, that's something I would compromise on, is doing that calculation and providing that. I believe it goes with the 7, but maybe it's a slightly better or slightly taller tree or something. I would concede that. It's not that I'm trying to get out of doing that portion of it. It's just that I really do not think it's the proper way to build it for what's good for all parties involved. But I would be willing to do those calculations for the trees and provide whatever that is that we would do if we do them lot by lot as well. It's not to get out of anything. It is what I think is best for everybody.
All right. Thank you, sir.
May I ask one other question? How long have you been involved with this property? For the full 3 years?
Yeah, I've been involved I've been the president of the company. I've had, the same as the city has had some turnover, I've had various employees that have worked for me. I'm based up out of our corporate office in Ohio. We have a main office in Orlando that we're doing projects. We've done them in Fort Pierce since, obviously we have this one in Sebastian, right. Titusville, we have one currently going, and then throughout the Orlando. So there's a team of about 30 people up in Orlando that a few of them have interacted with the city as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does the staff have any summarization they'd like to do?
Just a that we wanted to, I just want to remind, kind of re-explain or reiterate, that it doesn't have to be individual lots once that road base and all, and it can be groups of 10. I don't know if they build spec homes or do they have to have contracts on those homes first before they build them. We're not saying you have to build 99 homes each individually before you start another one. Certainly when certain sections of the roads are done, they can come in with blocks of land clearing. We just feel kind of piecemealing it largely like that will ultimately be better for the surrounding neighborhoods, for the extra silt that may go in. We don't know what the economy is going to be in the next couple of years. I hate to have 33 acres land cleared and then sit for 3 or 4 years.
Is that it? Thank you, Dory. All right, council.
I'll start.
Yes,
if
sir.
it's okay. So, you know, I can remember a very spirited discussion I had with Ms. Miller many years ago. And I know this discussion of the plan development was discussed then, and I know you're concerned with the time it would take to do that. It seems like that could have been done in that last 2 to 3 years. And it seems like it would have been the best outcome for you, the city. It doesn't sound like there was a lot that had to be given in order to get that. I'm guessing the platting would have been very similar to what we have now with maybe a park or two or a few other things. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it wasn't you directly, maybe it was your representative, and that's fine, either way. I just know that it seems like that would have been the better way to go, and the time that we spent moving this forward with the city, that would have made a better thing. I'm not for clear cutting this. I'm just really not. I just don't think it is in the best interest. We don't know. We have other developments around this area, not necessarily in the city, that have been clear cut, and here we are, 10 years later. For some of them, they sit there clear desert areas like Blue Water Bay out there off 510. So I think there was ways to do this to get exactly what the owners wanted to do, and I feel like, let's be honest, general development, anything they did was to make money, and there was no benefit to the citizens that they built for. They were all really crappily built, designed homes, and anybody that owns those homes have had to rebuild huge chunks of those homes because general development did not do what was best for the city in many ways, stormwater to be one of those things. So I would have liked to have personally seen you leave them behind, make it your own new development, do a plan development, do all the little few things that needed to be done, and I just think avoiding doing that puts you in this situation, and I just don't think it's the right thing. I just don't think clear cutting is the right for this situation.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else?
I agree. It just sounds like they want want your cake and eat it too situation. I don't agree with clear cutting at all. For the neighboring residents, the animals, like Councilmember Nunn says, with the developments in our area that are desolate, it's just a no for me.
Yeah, I heard some comments tonight about possible flooding issues if these lots are not clear cut. Talking about there'd be some flooding issues. I don't know where that would be at. But they also stated that we build fast. So like Dory stated, it's not saying that you have to clear one lot at a time. You can clear one lot at a time because you have to have the permit for it, but you can build 10 houses or 15 in a row. So it's not, I don't think that really affects anything. And I think it really affects, if we do clear cutting, it definitely affect the neighbors around that particular area. The animals, I'm just not, I'm definitely opposed to clear cutting, period. But talked about how much dirt would need to be come in, how many trucks would come in, and how this would disrupt the area and all of that. But we have constant construction around here. So I didn't hear about the amount of trees that if they were to clear cut that, how many trees are there that, and what would happen to those trees? Would they go into a nursery? Would they save them, or would they just grind them up and burn them up? These are things that I did not hear, and so I'm definitely opposed to clear cutting. So I support staff in their decision.
Well, I think Mr. Bill gave a very good presentation, and Dory did her usual phenomenal job for the city. And again, I'm in agreement, you know, if you want a clear cut, then replat.
Okay, this is one of those issues that drives me crazy because I'm going to vote with the code. And what that tells you is I'm going to vote in favor of the city's rejection because I'm going to vote with the code. But I understand 100% what was said about the impact on the development. I know in my mind that it doesn't matter whether we let them cut 33 acres or cut it one house lot at a time, the whole property's going to get clear cut.
Yep.
Either one lot at a time or 33 acres. It's not going to save a tree, no matter how they do it, because they knock down every tree on a lot as they build on it. And so it's one of those things that if you just have to make a determination, I guess, as to whether you're going to agree with the code or whether you're not. And if the code's incorrect, then we should change the code. It's that simple. You know, I'm not in favor of overriding the decision that was made by the city primarily because they basically are enforcing the code. But I agree 100% with almost everything that was said by the owner of the property. I mean, there are lots of advantages to going about the way that he talked about going about doing it, except it's just not going to fit our code. So that's the way I'm going to vote when it comes down to it. So I'll entertain a motion if we can have one.
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? Let's have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin,
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn,
Yes.
and Mayor Dodd.
Yes.
Carries.
Okay, I believe now we can go back. I think Congressman Posey's rep is here, I believe.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson is here.
Yes.
So just make sure we adjourn the
Adjourn
Board of
the
Adjustment.
Board of Adjustments.
Yeah. Oh, I have to adjourn the Board of Adjustments. I'm sorry. And now I'll reconvene the city council meeting. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop back to council item 6A, which is a presentation of the U.S. flag flown over the U.S. Capitol to celebrate the city of Sebastian's centennial.
Hooray.
Sorry.
Way up now.
Yeah. Thank you for waiting
Thank you.
patiently.
Good evening.
They're clapping for you because you're here. Yes, sir.
Sorry
We're
I'm late. I
excited.
got caught in I-95 traffic, unfortunately. My name is
happens.
David Jackson. I'm a Director of Community Relations for Congress.
Hold on one second. If y'all, please, if you're, can you please keep the noise down back there? Thank you. Okay.
As I was saying, my name is David Jackson. I'm a Director of Community Relations for Congressman Bill Posey. And I'll read the certificate that accompanied the flag in honor of Sebastian's centennial. This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over the United States Capitol on July 1st, 2024. At the request of the Honorable Bill Posey, Member of Congress, this flag was flown for the city of Sebastian, Florida, on the occasion of the centennial of the city of Sebastian, Florida. The city of Sebastian was incorporated on December 8th, 2024. This is from Thomas E. Austin, architect of the Capitol. And this is the flag
Very nice.
for the city of Sebastian. Congratulations on your centennial.
Thank
sir.
you.
Brian, do you want to? How about you guys all come? Let's get a picture. And we're going to take a 3-minute break after this too. No.
Podium, that's kind of ugly. Here we go.
Okay, Avon's faster, you know. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for making a trip down to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. We're taking a little recess.
Before Ed gets back up there to say we're taking a recess.
Okay, we're in recess for 3 minutes.
The meeting is recessed for 3 minutes.
Started, please. Going to reconvene the city council meeting, and council members, we are at the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull any items from the consent agenda? If not, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve items 10A through 10H.
Second.
Have a motion, seconded by Councilmember Parkland, I believe.
Yep.
All right. There is money there, so let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodds?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Unfinished business. We're now on to 13A, which is a ordinance, ordinance number O-2418, which is rescinding ordinance O-9742, which basically rescinded the right-of-ways for some streets. Would the staff like to make a presentation, please?
I'll do the reading.
Okay, we'd like to do it. That's
Thank
right,
you.
it's an ordinance.
Ordinance number 02418, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, repealing and rescinding Sebastian ordinance numbers O-9742 of March 5th, 1997, vacating the Ithaca Avenue from Empress Avenue to Spring Valley Avenue, Empress Avenue from Schuman Waterway to Spring Valley Avenue from Empress Avenue to the north line of Lot 21, Block 594, Spring Valley Avenue from the south line of Lot 22, Block 594 to Crawford Avenue, Alexis Street from Spring Valley Avenue south to the limit of Platte, and Alexis Street from Day Drive north to the limit of Platte's right-of-way, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. This will be the second and final reading.
Okay. I'd like to first bring out, before we move forward to council deliberation on this, see if there's anyone, staff wants to make a presentation. This is a contractual obligation on the part of the city. The city contractually, city council approved, and the city has contractually entered into the developers agreement that required that we rescind that prior ordinance. So this is actually a contractual obligation on the part of the city to execute this ordinance. Staff, would you like to make a presentation?
I think that pretty much covered it, Mayor. This is the second and final reading of this ordinance. It was continued from the October 16th, and this is in accordance with the developers agreement that you all are in contract with.
All right, thank you. All right, council.
I'll move approval of ordinance O-24-18.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion from council?
No, sir.
Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Public input.
Public input.
Oh, public input. I'm sorry. Is there any public input? When the audience emptied out, I didn't see.
We got Terry here.
Okay, there's a couple here. Is there any public input on this item? Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
And Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Now the city manager is going to do a presentation and a discussion on the strategic plan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for the record, we have our consultants, Dr. Saviak and Dr. Levy, are available via Zoom. But however, once we advanced this far in the strategic plan process, the direction from council was directed to me to work with our consultants and work with specific members of our staff to come to our final recommendation for our mission statement, vision statement, values, and goals. So this slide kind of shows you the process that's been followed in conjunction with our consultants. They have led us all the way through this process. We've gotten to the point now to where we're ready to hopefully get some discussion and approval from you all, as I mentioned earlier, on our mission, vision, values, and goals. And then that will allow us at that point, we'll have clear direction with the goals of City Council at that point, and allow us to work with all the department heads to begin to establish their goals and objectives that align with what you all want to see done and what our residents want to see done. Because obviously, we've included numerous opportunities for residents to have input on this process, and we want to be able to proceed and process what they want to see happen within the city. So, as I just mentioned, we've received some valuable feedback from our residents. They were engaged. We had a couple community meetings that allowed them, and then also every single time we've been with the consultants in front of you all, the public has had an opportunity to speak on those items as well. This is kind of going back to what was presented to you all at the previous meeting with the community workshops, to where we allowed our residents to have input on what they would like to see included or not included in our mission, vision, values, and goals. As we begin to start to go into what we've identified as our options for those, a lot of things were included in multiple sections. So we tried to come together with a consensus on where it would fit best amongst the mission, vision, values, and goals, because there was some redundancy from our residents and staff and you all in those elements. So once again, the city survey compared to the community input on where exactly we stood on our mission statement, and kind of taking this into consideration. And one of the goals that we kind of set forward in this plan initially was to have a short but to the point mission statement that was easily recognizable across all of our workforce. It's not something that reads across multiple sentences. What we're presenting to you all tonight is one succinct sentence that we think captures what should be the mission of the city. And then obviously we expand a little further once we get into our vision, and then our values and goals expand even further down along the line. So our recommendation for the city's mission statement going forward is the City of Sebastian strives to enhance the quality of life through excellence in public services. So I know as we've gone through the process, there's been numerous things that have come up along the way with the mission statement. But with my recommendation, we didn't get too detailed into that. You'll see as we get into the vision statement, and obviously values and goals, we get a little bit more detailed with those. So any comment, do you want to stop individually, or we want to talk about them once we get through all the way?
We can probably do it individually.
Okay.
Because once we get past the mission statement, then we can go through those. So has anyone got any comments on the mission statement?
I was just going to say with the testament earlier tonight, I think you nailed it.
I like it. I think a mission statement needs to be succinct and that you kind of know it. So I'm very happy with it.
I like that it's a simple mission statement.
Very.
Sometimes you get these mission statements that are this long, and you're like, what the heck did I just read? I think this emphasizes our goals. Well, our mission.
I mean, I like the succinctness of it. I tend sometimes to get concerned about words like excellence when they're left on their own, because somebody's got to say what does that mean? What is excellence in public service? But I think you can get that carried through your goals and carried through the further part of that. So
yes, sir.
So do you want us to give you a consensus that we agree to this? Is that what you'd like to see, or what would be beneficial?
A consensus would be fine to get us all the way to the end point of this, and I mean past this point, and then we can. Okay. I don't think it's something that you formally have to vote on. I mean, consensus is fine. Well,
council, I guess what it sounded to me like I heard it was the consensus was that the mission statement was.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Okay, so you got that.
All right.
I know Fred's smiling. I'm not sure what he's thinking. But
I was waiting for him to say something.
Sometimes when he smiles,
we'll move on to the vision.
Yeah, there you go.
So in the vision, as you can see on the presentation, we had the city survey and where the input from staff, council, our kind of leadership team was, and then the community input for where we got community input on what they saw were the most important things. So as I mentioned numerous times, this is where we'll get a little bit further in the specificity of what we're looking to do. So our presented vision statement for you all's consideration is to be known as the most desirable city in Florida to live, work, and play due to our hometown vibe, coastal charm, promotion of the waterfront, and protection of the Indian River Lagoon. So that's what we're looking to, that's who we want to be. That's, obviously we have our mission as who we are, and then our vision is who we want to be. So any comments, concerns, changes?
Let me do one thing. There's a couple people in the audience. I don't know if they want to comment on this stuff or not, but if you'd like to comment on this, you're more than welcome to. Okay, you want to comment, or okay? Okay. Okay. All right. All right, council?
You know, I think, yeah, this is good as far as work and play throughout our hometown vibe. And this goes hand in hand with the promotion of the waterfront and the protection of the Indian River Lagoon, being a small fishing village. This really sets the tone for that.
Definitely.
There might be people that will not like us calling it to be known as the most desirable city in Florida to live, but.
No?
Yeah, that part
It is,
I'm not
it
sure
is,
about.
it is, yeah, I mean, it is how we feel. I know people may say, well, you don't want to do that because then people want to live there.
Right.
Well, yeah, unfortunately,
But
that's part of life, but I like this. It's good.
Well, of the 400-plus cities in Florida, 380 believe they're the most desirable. So,
They're all wrong, but that's okay.
What happened to the 411?
okay, so
I mean, I'm fine with the vision. The only problem is my fifth grade English teacher, Sister Maria Meldis, she would have beat my hand. Call that a run-on sentence. For sure.
Right?
Yeah, definitely run on.
Yes, we did try to capture a lot since we had a shortened mission statement. We tried to capture a lot here, so I would agree that it is a run-on with multiple things, but
It
whatever
needs
you
to
all
be.
would like.
It needs to be.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's good, like it.
okay. Let's go, you have a consensus, I think, on that, right?
Perfect.
Let's go to the values.
So we'll move on to the values. This is really kind of what we hone in on and what we want to represent as a city, what we feel are important. And what we're recommending is honesty and transparency, ethics and professionalism, innovation, and protection of our natural resources. So these were kind of all identified as the higher level items if you look back across the board. Obviously, I mentioned preserve coastal charm. That was included in our vision statement. But the rest of it we try to capture within our values.
I'm going to nitpick a little.
Yes.
I would like to see the bottom two swapped, if we're putting this into documentation.
Oh, okay, so put protection of natural resources above innovation?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
I'm on
you know,
thesaurus right now for another word from innovation, because I
the-
don't think they loved that word when we went through this before.
well, I mean, you know, it's always, innovation
I
is one of those things
know.
that people get scared of.
Yes.
We have to keep that as a priority, obviously.
You're
You're closer
right.
to the top, so.
We do.
But yeah, I like moving the protection of natural resources up.
Innovation is like affordable housing. People don't necessarily understand what you're talking
You're
about
right.
sometimes. But no, I like
So
this.
are we saying remove
No,
innovation?
we're
Just
just
swap
saying
the
to
bottom
move
two.
it.
Or just drop it down? Okay.
Yeah, just make protection of our natural resources
Okay.
number
Can,
3
can we
higher.
add words to innovation? Because then I don't like it being on the bottom being a small word. Can we just,
So I think before
can we
had
put it in with like innovation with our public services? Like do something with that.
How about innovative initiatives?
Thank you. That's
Right there
better.
it is.
Well, it's right here on our screen. so
Well, yeah,
we
I
know that.
know. Well, I'm looking at this because I'm trying to find a way to fix
Yeah.
it.
So
But-
we did have innovative initiatives in our initial.
But weren't we talking about using, yeah, because we were using that with our public services.
So if you all would like, we can add initiatives back in there.
Yeah.
and then we
Innovative
will drop-
initiatives, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with the first two being 1 and 2, or do you want to move protection of natural resources higher, or what?
No, because
I-
we have
No,
to have
just how
honesty
we're
and
gonna list it on our
transparency.
No,
website.
because those other ones are very important.
Yeah.
Just
They are.
just
They
move innovative initiatives to the bottom.
I think it's more of just a visual. This isn't necessarily setting what's 1, 2, 3, and 4 in our priorities,
Mm-hmm.
but a visual for the public to see. We will gladly move
That's how they will take it.
protection of
Yeah.
the natural
Yes.
resources up.
But how we list them will determine
It
that,
will.
so, yeah.
Well, one of the things is to be ethical and professional, you by default need to be honest and transparent.
True.
Listen, you
So-
can, no, that's not
Whoa,
true.
no,
You can be
yeah.
honest and transparent, be unprofessional as heck.
Yeah.
This is true.
I mean, you can be honestly and ethical, okay?
And
And we've seen a lot of that in the last month. Okay. We okay with the
Here,
values?
here.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
Values
Okay.
are good now.
All right, the goals.
And then the final one, as I mentioned earlier, this is really going to be the driving force of how we continue to advance this strategic plan. We want to ensure that our department heads, when they're establishing their goals and objectives, they need to align with the direction from our citizens and council with what our goals are going to be. And these are the items that also, everything that goes into our budget going forward is going to have to align with our goals. So it's going to take a lot of work and work amongst department heads to get to this level. And so what you see here, and I want to be clear on this a little bit, is what has been presented the whole way through our plan. When we get to my recommendation, there are, I believe, 2 items that I had a little bit of concern when I started looking all the way through our budget and where we would be able to align certain parameters that we have in our budget that we can't really get rid of. They're not projects, they're more of line item things that don't align with any of these items. So you'll see, I'll go ahead and kind of use an example. One of the recommendations I have is the next to last one, maintaining fiscal responsibility. When I get into the finance department and start to look at some of those things, they didn't really fall amongst the goals that we had previously discussed amongst council and the public. So we needed to be able to look at maintaining fiscal responsibility as an item that some of those things would fall underneath. So I just didn't want you all to think that I pick and chose things to just throw at you tonight that you hadn't seen before, but they were things that in discussions with our consultants and some of our staff, that we felt that it would assist us as we continue to go forward with our goals and getting us a broader range of goals to work with.
Well, fiscal responsibility crosses all departments, not just the finance department.
Correct. I was just using that as an example that they had specific things in their budget that I could not find another goal that we had already discussed that it would fall under. So I had to create something additional at that time.
And one of the things I think is important is, and I don't know whether it's the way to work, we're supporting smart and sustainable growth. The way that's going to be viewed by a lot of people is we're going to want to build smart and sustainable houses all over the place because the word growth is there. In reality, we should be talking about everything that we do within the city. We should be doing sustainable growth within the city, following sustainable practices that have been in the past and hopefully will continue to be laid out by the Sustainable Sebastian Initiative and other types of things. So I don't know whether there's a reason to maybe shift that some way or another, but I think it's important that we realize that the word growth there doesn't just mean growing the city's footprint. It also means growing the way the city does business.
Correct.
And do that in a sustainable fashion and do it in a smart fashion. So.
And I think one of the things, speaking exactly to that point is that goal, when you, maybe the public or people look at it, they think immediately community development, planning and zoning, right? But there's going to be other departments that are going to have goals that fall underneath that category. So we'll be able to see that and show it once we advance the strategic plan. And I think that'll better align it, because when we come back to you all, the next stage will be, you'll see your goal, council's goal, residents and council's goal is supporting smart, sustainable growth. And then we're going to show the department goals that fall underneath that initiative. And that's where it'll come back to you all. And I think that'll better represent what we're trying to say here, but I think it'll represent it at that time.
I think people have a belief that we just grow with no planning. And obviously we have a comprehensive plan. We have other documents to help guide our growth. But unfortunately, if someone owns property and they want to build, they have the right to build it. And I think understanding, adding this to that and helping people understand how we are supporting smart and sustainable growth, I think is important. So I'll like to see what you come up with as far as some of the actions.
Do we have a consensus feeling on the goals?
You have it from me.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So the one thing I do want to, Dr. Saviak or Dr. Levy, do you guys have anything to add?
I would just congratulate the council on the work that you've done to date and the consensus that you've built. I think you've got a very solid approach, and we look forward to getting into the next level of the plan.
Thank you, sir. Now, Brian, the hard question. Do we have any type of a schedule or something on the next phase?
So our plan is to immediately, the department heads that are here will hear this, but we will discuss this tomorrow morning in our department meeting. To begin the process, I'll start meeting individually with them, and I know our consultants will be assisting us with that as well. We'll start discussions with our department heads to start their process of development and where they really need to start to hone in on aligning with the goals that are now put in front of them from you all. And so I don't want to, we're not saying we don't get anything done. We are getting a little bit into the holiday season as we go through November, December. So it'll probably be after the first of the year before we come back with something of that nature.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Sounds good.
So that'll be our next thing. So I'll work with our department heads and we'll begin to bring those back to you all as we go forward. And with that, any questions for me or the consultants?
Great
Dr.
job.
Saviak and Dr. Levy are available as well.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Yep, excellent.
Okay, we're now on to new business, item 14A, consideration of the purchase of from Dobbs Equipment, a John Deere tractor. City staff.
Good evening, council. We're here before you this evening to purchase a new boom mower tractor. The current one that we currently have is nearing end of life. This is utilized to clean alongside of roadways, the excess brush, run our canals, ditches, no matter. This was budgeted at $235. We came in at $219. So we're under budget by about $16,000.
Any questions from the staff, council?
No, I think this is something that's needed. I know that we also have a lot of, like the Brazilian peppers and other stuff that grow out over the road. This is a great tool for taking care of that so that, you know, vehicles can go down the roadway, and along with all the ditches and the canals as well, so.
I mean, the amount of rain we had this past storm before the hurricane, the day before, it was all gone within hours and by next morning. It's apparent that your teams are doing an amazing job at getting our stormwater canals and things cleared, and if this is going to help continue that process, it's perfect.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure on this?
I'll make a motion to approve item 14A for the purchase of the John Deere tractor from Dobbs Equipment.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any comments? Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Public input.
Public input.
Oh, I'm sorry, public input. Nobody in the department heads want to talk about it. Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
And Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, item 14B, consideration of ordinance number O-2419. I'll let the attorney read the ordinance language, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 02419, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida related to the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, and amending Section 2-10, Procurement of Goods and Services, establishing and amending purchasing thresholds, procurement methods, and procedures, providing for codification, conflicts, severability, scrivener's errors, and effective date. The first reading.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll get this started and then I'll turn it over to Jessica with procurement and let her kind of go through the whole process. But I just want to start it off and, you know, why is this coming before you all? And obviously, you know, our procurement ordinance has been from 2006. And one of the things that I'm looking at doing with this is becoming more efficient and improving the process for our department heads and being able to advance things a little quicker. The checks and balances are still going to be there. I check their budgets pretty frequently, and so that's not going to change, but just kind of some of the levels and where purchasing is at the current time. I felt like this was something we need to look into. So that was one of Jessica's first tasks when she was hired, and we're at the point now that we're ready to present it to you all, so I'll turn it over to her for a presentation.
Well, thank you, Brian, for going over half my presentation. I appreciate it. So, as Brian stated, good evening, council. We are here because we would like to update the procurement ordinance. And as stated earlier, the ordinance was put into place in 2006, and it has not been updated since. So what we are trying to do is update that ordinance, which, believe it or not, that's the first thing everyone bombarded me with my first week here, because they did not like the thresholds because they have not changed since 2006. So I would like to update this ordinance, which will give us better tools to achieve our goals and standardize the city's methods for procuring goods and services. So our current ordinance, it only outlines the thresholds as well as the exemptions, but it does not go over the procurement methods that the procurement division will use. It does not go over what the cone of silence is. It does not outline our protest procedures. And it also does not outline how the city would handle tie bids. These are items that are important for you to state in your ordinance, and you don't realize it until you need them, and there's no outline of how you handle these situations. So with our new policy, one of the things that it will do is it will revise the thresholds, but it will also outline which methods that the procurement division will use. So moving forward, we'll be able to use invitations to bid, requests for proposal, requests for qualifications, and even an invitation to negotiate, which we may not use, but I would like to have it there in case down the line we need to use it. It also will outline a cone of silence. So the cone of silence means anytime I have a bid out on the street, that those vendors are only allowed to talk to me, the procurement manager. They are not allowed to talk to any city employees or any council members about that bid on the street. If they do, they are breaking the cone of silence. And if they're egregious in their action, we do have the option to reject their bids and not allow them to bid. That's not listed in our current policy, and we need to have that protection. We also need to outline the steps for vendors to protest a bid. If they put in a bid and they want to protest it because they feel they should have been the awarded vendor, we needed to have a method for them to do that. So now we have outlined that method for them to protest any bid procedures. We're also outlining how the city will handle identical type bids. The state statutes do list one of the ways, which is drug-free workplace certification, but we don't have anything after that. So in case anyone wonders, it's the state of Florida's drug-free workplace program. Then it is our local vendor preference, and then if we get to it, it's a coin flip. I have used that where vendors tied across the board and we had to actually go to a coin flip. So by having this outlined, vendors will know firsthand, okay, if I have a problem or if I'm doing this, I can go back and pull this ordinance and say, look, you are breaking this ordinance if it comes to cone of silence, or if it comes to protests or identical type bids, oh, I lost my word and I was on a train of thought. There is no, I'm gonna say, hesitation, even though I know that's not the right word, for the method that we're using. They can see it right there in black and white. So moving on to our proposed policy. The current policy, which is on your left, we do have several steps to it, and a lot of individuals are confused when it comes to how many quotes do they need. Do they need one? Do they need two? Do they need three? Does it go to council, and do they need a bid? So my goal was to try and streamline it. Moving forward, anything less than $2,500 will just require a quote or an invoice. There is no purchase order required. Currently, it's $750, although it is not stated in the ordinance. A previous city manager brought to council a presentation that set the purchase order threshold at $750. That does hinder staff when they are trying to, let's say if it's a piece of equipment that they need to use, if it's $751, they have to get a quote, bring it back, have someone in the department enter the requisition, then it has to go through the chain for approval. Versus if they needed that piece of equipment and it's $751, they can get that equipment, get that invoice, and then that's it. They would stamp it, and I still see them. Before we issue checks, I want to make it known that even though we're changing this, I see the purchases that come through. That is something that myself and the finance department have put together. So by changing this, we still have eyes on it. It's not a case where it's happening and procurement does not know it's happening. When we move to the second threshold, it is now $2,500 up to $25,000, and it requires 3 quotes. When we go to the next item, it is $25,000 up to $75,000, but it requires 3 quotes, a purchase order, and council approval. And based on the bids that I've issued since I started here, council would still see the bids that we have done. So it would not be an instance where we're doing a project for Public Works and you don't know what's happening. Everything that we have done, you will still approve that. And I'm also working with Brian to put into place, so anytime that I issue out a bid, you guys will be notified of it at your meetings with him. So there will be a list. So therefore, when the cone of silence comes up, you won't say, oh, I didn't know this was out to bid. You will know. And then if there's a threshold where you feel you want to be notified on items, you can let Brian know, and then we can get that together for you. So although we're changing that threshold from the 25,000 with the PO and council, it is going to 75, but council will still be notified. And moving to over 75, that's when we're going to do a formal bid, and that's when it'll have council approval. So it will change how I, in procurement, issue out solicitations, whether or not it's formal or it's informal, because I do a request for quote. But it will still provide council a chance to see any of the larger projects. And if there's anything that you have a question about, as always, you would take that to Brian, and then he would let me know so I can provide that information. So before I go to the next slide, were there any questions on the thresholds?
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
And it's about the mechanics of the bottom threshold, but that's, I mean, we can wait till we get through the whole process if you want to on that.
I only have one more slide, so we can go through that.
Let's just do your one more slide, then we'll go on.
Jessica, I have one thing I just want to clarify for council.
Okay.
So currently your level that comes to you is $15,001. You see that? What we're showing here is that would now increase to 25,001 cent. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 15,001 cent. It'll go to 25,001 cent. You'll see them. It's just now, you know, the biggest change where you see the 25,000 to 75,000 is really where we go out to the formal bid process. And to be clear, our formal bid process takes a couple months. I mean, it's just, there's no way around it. Because by the time we prepare the scope of work, the document goes through the review process through all the different departments that need to review it because the department is doing the project, then it goes to finance, then it goes to legal, then it comes to me, then it goes back to finance. So there's multiple steps. It's a 2 to 3 month process to go out in a formal bid by the time it comes back to you all. So that'll raise that area for that up to 75,000, which is really consistent with what we're seeing across the state of municipalities of our size.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay. So on to the next slide. If you like, I have my vision, mission, and value up there. Did that on purpose. So for our vision is to streamline the purchase order process. So last year, we had 537 purchase orders. And for a city the size of Sebastian, that's a lot. But looking at those purchase orders, 235 of them were for under $2,500. And that is a lot of small dollar purchase orders, and that is a lot of work because, again, if they're putting in a purchase order, it's the department, it is procurement, it is going to the city manager, and then it is going back to the department. So it's just a lot of hands that it's touching for something that is a small dollar amount. And I have a spreadsheet if you'd like to look at it, but that's how I have the approximate 51.5 minutes to process a purchase order at a cost of $61, and that's all the resources throughout the city. And by doing this, by changing that threshold from where it is now, $750 to $2,500, we will wind up saving 201 hours of just staff time. And so I see Mayor looking at me. I can pull it up on Elmo if you would like to see it.
No, I'm not uncomfortable with it. I just, my mind is twirling right now because it doesn't, the people that, Joe Blow out in the city doing work and realizes I need 4 pieces of pipe, but I don't have it. I can go to Home Depot and get them, or I can spend the next 2 days trying to justify them down at the building department. And what you're setting up is a procedure by which you can go to Home Depot and buy that pipe.
Yes.
Okay. And so I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. But at some point in time, there's still going to be somebody in the department that's going to have to see that invoice, have to not
Yes.
say to Joe Blow, why did you go to Home Depot, you know, or whatever. So yes, you are going to cut out some of these hours, but the quantitative measure of that is sometimes difficult to come up with. I don't disagree with your 201 hours at all.
And again, we will cut out some of the middle process to get it done. However, the department will still have to have the funds for the item. They will still have to review the invoice. They will still have to stamp it and turn it in. So that won't change. So they don't get a blank check, although some of them would like it. They won't get that. And I will look and see them, and they know if I see a recurring purchase, I start mentioning, now it's time to do a bid. Because we've continually done this, let's do a bid, makes it easier to have a vendor on contract, and then we don't have to go through this process.
Yes, I agree.
So that was the end, nice and sweet.
Okay, my question that I had is, how are the under $2,500?
Yes.
How are they going to be paid for, the under 2,500?
So usually the under 2,500, it's going to go to finance. So it would be our normal procedure, which is the department has an invoice. They would look at that invoice and stamp it. It has their account number on it, and that's how it's going to get paid. It's done with a check, or they can use their credit card.
Okay, so potentially this will be purchased with an individual in our staff who is working, and the guy who realizes I need 2 45-degree elbows, 6-inch pipe to finish this particular thing, and they've got them at Home Depot.
Yes.
He's going to be able to take a credit card and go to Home Depot and buy those 2 elbows.
That's correct. They can
Okay.
use their credit card as long as it's under their threshold. If it's over that, we have other methods
Okay,
for them to do
so
that.
you're not talking about city-owned credit cards being used for this. You're talking about individuals purchasing that?
No, so the individuals, they have a city-owned Visa, like I know that our department heads, they do, or our maintenance staff, they have their own city-owned Visas that they can use for these projects, which are tied to their accounts.
Okay.
So if they needed something from, let's say, Home Depot, and it was $751, previously they had to put in a purchase order. Now they can go to Home Depot, if their card allows, and make that purchase. If their card does not allow, we have other mechanisms in place for them to use other cards that have that threshold.
Right, and when you say their card, you're really talking about a city card that they
Yes.
have authorization to use?
Yes, that is
That's
correct.
I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any situation where we ask employees to buy this stuff out in their own.
No, sir.
No, okay,
No,
so
sir.
we're okay with that.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just clarify that a little bit. So every department head has the authority to issue a purchasing card to employees within their department.
Okay.
Whoever they choose. All of those, for the most part, are capped at $750. That's been our level since I've been here for sure. But we do have additional cards that have a higher limit that they then would have to go to their department head and go that process to get those approvals to get that. So it just takes the PO process comes from the department to finance, to the city manager's office, back to finance, back to the city manager's office, and then to the department. I'm just telling you, so when the 51 minutes we're looking at that's spread across 1 to 2 days for all POs.
Yes, I have no problem at all with $2,500. I just want to understand the mechanics of how that works. So, you're going to have some people who are going to still have a $750 limit, and you're going to have some people who are going to have greater than that. And it's up to the department head to figure out which ones are going to get $750 and which ones are going to get greater than that. But they're going to be the people that are actually determining what purchasing need. They may have supervisors in the field that they give a greater limit than $752.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
That's correct.
And it's going to be an approval process. Brian, I've had some experience with this, and I don't know whether you've maybe you've never seen any of this kind of stuff before, but the U.S. Army and probably the Marine Corps, but most of the military branches had credit cards they gave to thousands and thousands of people, and they authorized them to buy stuff. Okay, and what they didn't check very well until they got caught by a bunch of reporters was whether these guys were using their cards with, let's say, a $500 limit and buying $450 worth of stuff one day, $450 the next day, $450 the next day, $450 the next day, and they were charging $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 towards a project that didn't have authorization to spend that kind of money by doing it in small increments. You're going to take care of that by having purchasing and finance both go through this process of reviewing this, correct?
I can tell you, since Jessica's been here, it has happened. And that's why she sees every single invoice that comes through the city.
Okay.
Goes through her. So then she kind of compiles it. And recurring purchases that all look the same, there's something going on there. And then we go out and we issue a bid for pipe or different things like that that's happened.
I'm very impressed with the document. We've needed this for a long time. We've needed the detail in here. One last suggestion, and it's about the quiet period. I would like to see maybe the council get a list once every other week or once a month that says these are the POs that are out. So maybe we get an email or something, Brian, that says that, so we can be aware of what's going into the process if someone
Yeah,
calls
so
us.
I think what we'll do is we'll put together.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
We'll put together like a weekly or a bi-weekly
Monthly,
email.
I mean,
that
some
just
way or
notifies
another, just to know what's in the
I
process.
think it's important for us to know the quiet periods especially, because that way if somebody is calling us about something, if we know it's
Yeah,
a
that's
violation of
fine.
that, we wouldn't know if we didn't know, so.
Correct.
Although I think what I heard down
No
there
one
was
calls
best
me.
quiet period is don't talk. So
Yep. I don't talk.
I'm fine with this, council. I like it.
I'll make a motion. I do have to ask a question.
Hold on.
When is the
Anyone in the
second?
public like to
Yeah.
address this?
When is the second reading?
Jessica, thank you
Seeing
for a
none.
very thorough and beautiful presentation.
I try not to talk too much, so I'm happy you thought it was thorough.
It was great.
None of that, council member, no.
When is the second reading?
So we're requesting for you all to set the second reading for November 20th.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, motion to approve ordinance 0-24-19 and set a second reading for November 20th.
Second.
You have a motion and a second? A roll call, please.
Mayor
Thank you,
Dodd,
council.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
And Councilmember Nunn.
All right, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. We're on to first reading of ordinance 02420. Would the city attorney like to read the ordinance language, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 024-20, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida related to City of Sebastian Code of Ordinances, Chapter 74 of Parks and Recreation, amending Section 74-4, Parens A, Parens 2, related to smoking and vaping within city parks, amending Section 74-4, Parens A, Parens 11, related to e-bikes and e-scooters within city parks, and creation of Section 74-4, Parens A, Parens 15, prohibiting release of balloons, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Staff.
Good evening, Council. Richard Blankenship, Parks and Recreation Director. Council, these are some very simple language additions that we thought was important to do because it kind of follows new state law. We've already put signage at Riverview as far as the e-scooters and e-bikes go. We've already done a educational series on social media about e-bikes and e-scooters, and the state law is way more complex than what we've got here. But the use of e-bikes and e-scooters in parks has been one of the largest complaints we've had in the last, since I've been here. So we're addressing that. State law changed relative to balloons, and the state law is more complex than what we've got because it has to do with what's filling the balloon. But, you know, with the estuary, with the river, with our natural resources, balloons aren't, that are purposely released are not good for the environment in general. So that's kind of how we want to. And then the tobacco usage, really the big change there is including the electronic devices. And that sums up our changes, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Why are unfiltered cigars exempted?
They have a very good lobby.
I'm sorry?
They have a good lobby.
Yes.
So that's
Certain special
because the state
someone.
law exempts them, we can't prohibit them. Is that basically it?
Correct.
Yep.
Gosh. I think we should have relations with Cuba and at least get some good ones.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
is that?
is that a black and
Black and
mild?
mild or something? What are you talking about? are you talking about over here,
Right.
Bob? Yeah.
I mean, what I said was, if we can't prohibit them, let's just get a relationship with Cuba and get some good ones.
Right.
What's rolled in that black and white? I don't know.
Okay, and then, I know the balloon thing is a revision in state law, but what about the hot air where they light a candle in one of these?
The Chinese.
Chinese lanterns.
lanterns? Are they,
I believe those are still,
those are still
accepted.
authorized? So we can't, the state didn't prohibit those then? Okay,
not to my knowledge.
all right.
That's more biodegradable than the plastic balloon.
I don't know, the poor turtles in the river when they drop on them, but. Okay, so council, anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to know, I know this is really good to have this, but I guess the next bigger question is how are we going to enforce all of this? So that would be the bigger question here. So it's one thing to have it, but.
It's like most of our rules and regulations is, it's better to have the language to be enforced when you need it than not to have it at all.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah.
Wait till after tomorrow and we have to figure out what we're gonna do with marijuana.
Oh, Lord, don't get me started.
Hey.
Okay, is there anyone from the public like to address this? Council, what's your pleasure on this?
I'll make a motion. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance -O-24-20 and set a second reading for November 20th.
Second.
Second.
Okay. And I don't think we need a roll call on this, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Madam Attorney, do you have any comments this evening?
Did you know that there used to be a powerful lobby for seatbelts that allowed them, and you were not allowed to enforce a restriction in the front seat of a truck? If you had a pickup truck, you didn't have to use the seatbelt. One of those lobby things, quirks.
Is that still effective?
I'm not sure, I don't think so, but it did used to be. I gave you some material tonight. We didn't happen to need it, but it's for your reading pleasure on public participation and things of that nature. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, and you were talking at one time about the ordinance that covers our meeting procedures, and I think we asked you to talk about maybe going from 5 to 3 minutes.
Well, I was going to bring that to you on the 20th for
Okay.
direction, but if you want to,
No, I was just asking, I was going to reference to what the information you gave us this evening, if whether
Right.
you were going to rethink that some of the stuff in that policy based on this.
well, so if you look at what I gave you, the back part of it does have a sample ordinance from another jurisdiction in South Florida. And we have a lot of this already in place. I just found some of it helpful and things we might consider. So I wanted you guys to have a chance to look at this.
Okay.
And then we can talk about it a little bit further and get final direction on any ordinances or codification changes that you would like to have made at the next meeting, assuming we have time. Looks like maybe a big agenda. I don't.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anything else from y'all on that?
No. Are you done? Are you
Yeah, I'm done. I'm just wondering if y'all are good with that.
Anyone else have anything?
We need to have a copy of this mailed to people.
Sorry. Oh.
Mr. City Manager.
I have no comment on that.
I'll be short and sweet tonight. So just an update. Once again, staff did a great job with our hurricane debris removal. Stayed on top of our contractors. Lee did a really good job, and Karen's had been working with FEMA and kind of starting that process of reimbursement. We'll see how that goes. But Lee did a great job. He was on top of these guys. He was out there with them 7 days a week, and kind of pushing them to get in, get the debris removed, get it mulched, and get it out of here. So one thing that I'll kind of let you all know that changed during our process was in the past, we collect the debris, we take it to a debris management site, it gets recorded with our third-party emergency management group. They register the cubic yards per truck that's brought in. It's then dumped at the debris management site. The hauler comes in, they mulch it, it's then loaded up, they calculate the cubic yardage, they take it to a final disposal site. We were notified by the county that they were not accepting mulch material. at the landfill. So we then had to, and the county assisted us with working with another entity to dump our debris at a separate entity. So when we come back with our final numbers, you will see that our final debris disposal site is not at the Indian River County landfill. It was at Sebastian River Farms, and they were accepting the mulch debris from the city of Vero and the city of Sebastian at their site. So that we got approval through Department of Emergency Management of the state. They gave us approval that it was an acceptable final disposal site. So all those things went into work and into measure. But I just wanted to bring that to you all's attention, that it did not go to the landfill because they were not accepting it. And Lee had already pushed our debris haulers to get it out of there. So they were scheduled to come. So we had to find a site to take it, to get it off the airport property. Just to give you an idea of where we were with our debris from this storm, I believe, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, the last hurricane we did debris removal, we were at like 3,600 cubic yards, kind of a rough number of about 3,600. For this storm, taking into account just vegetation, we were closer to 14,000 cubic yards.
3,600
to 14,000 was the difference between the two storms. And then C and D was only about 160 cubic yards. And then, so that 14,000, roughly 14,000, it's a little bit less than that, it's like 13,600. But once they mulched it down to take it to the final disposal site, it went down approximately to about 16% of that number to a little bit over 2,000. So we saw a reduction of about 85% in the debris down to the mulch material. Just interesting facts that I found from this process, with it being my first time with the debris removal company. But that's where we currently are, and that was the debris that was picked up. And it's out of here. We don't have it on site. They're completed. And so we're moving forward now with waste management and our typical debris pickup.
I had a couple of people that were extremely happy with our staff, not because of the vegetative debris, but because of construction materials. So I want to congratulate Lee and his staff. They were really concerned about trick-or-treaters on Halloween night with some of that construction debris, and they made a special effort to get that out of the way. It was really good, and the residents were happy about that. So, yeah.
That's all I have for tonight.
All right. The city clerk.
So if you haven't voted yet, tomorrow you're going to vote at your precinct, okay? Not at City Hall. Vote at your precinct tomorrow. And to find your precinct, go to voteindianriver.gov, and it lists all the precinct. Fill in your address. It'll tell you where to vote.
And please do.
Yes, please do.
Mr. Mayor, I did have one other thing that I failed to mention. So this was, to the best of my knowledge, the first election that we have really put in place our ordinance in regards to political signs on City Hall property. We had a staff member from our police department, different shifts, so it varied the person, but they would come around after polling hours, gave them a little bit of a buffer, 5 o'clock instead of polling hour closes at 4, and we picked up any signs that were left out. So we can't statutorily, can't prohibit them from having the signs during polling hours, but we did enforce the after polling hours or non-polling hours signage. So we did do that this year. And we didn't hear the large amount of complaints that we normally hear from all the signs and everything this year. So I think it was a success. And it's just something that we need to have a discussion on from a council level in regards to continuing to have early voting and whether we want to continue to function the way we did this year or how we want to do it going forward. So that'll be something we can discuss after the new year and as we start to go down that process.
And they made some statute changes, I think, didn't they? Related to people at polling places, candidates, for example, at a polling place, politicking, how close they could be. Didn't they change some of those barriers this year?
I don't think it's changed this year.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge, when we did look it all up to come to that determination on the signs in between the the primary and the general, make sure that the boundaries of what we could do with respect to those signs to limit the noise or the sign pollution.
Yeah, this is the first early voting period here at City Hall that we haven't had a large number of people out there on the street waving signs and screaming at people. They just weren't, nobody was there. Just
There was some,
not much.
not too many.
All right, Councilmember Nunn, you're next.
Well, thank you for the election signs thing. That was one of my frustrations last election, and I'm glad to see it was much cleaner this time. And I actually was surprised that there weren't a lot more people out there this election, considering how big of an election it is. My only thing I throw out there today is, over the past few weeks, been through some personal family changes, and I would encourage people that you know, own houses and have things and have children to consider talking to somebody about creating a trust for your family. I've learned that wills don't necessarily protect you against the state of Florida and other states, and that I would really consider looking at creating a trust to help keep your stuff where you want it to go after you pass. Thank you.
All right, Vice Mayor Dixon.
All I just have to say is if you have not already voted, go vote. It's a big election.
And I have nothing this evening. Councilmember Jones.
Yes, go out and vote, everybody. Exercise your constitutional right to vote. Turn up, vote if you haven't already voted. That's it for me.
And I'll second that as well. You know, and it's encouraging to see that there's been 63% have voted in the county, and I think that's pretty amazing. And I think they'll be up well over probably 85, I would say. So that's encouraging. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, unless there's something else for the good of the order, we are adjourned.